This is Governor Bobber. I like good day doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Go!
You're watching Dr. Politics.
Happy Friday, everyone. We are back. It is Juneteenth weekend. We've had a busy week. Last Friday, we were at the convention. And by the way, we got Chris Christie to do a plug for the opening. So the next iteration of our opening will have Chris Christie in it as well.
Is he going to say Trump's a loser?
No, he says good day, doctors. And what I thought was kind of funny is I gave him I've got his card, by the way. He gave me his card. But very nice guy. Chris Christie, nice guy. But I must say, he did a good talk. He basically made some sense, frankly, opposed to what do you call it, and we've got Susan's making dinner. And thanks for watching, Susan, as always. We've got, where was that? Yeah, so Chris Christie gave a nice talk, I thought, it was, your typical campaign presidential speech, I thought, I gave him an Artemis pin. I kind of got the impression he wasn't too sure what exactly the Artemis project was. And I'll tell you, remind me afterwards. I got a funny story for you. Kind of relates, but I don't want to say it on the air. Might not be prudent, as George H.W. Bush would say. It wouldn't be prudent. But
So was Christie received pretty well overall then? I mean,
yeah. We had about 100 people in the room. The way I look at it is people come there for the free food, and to be seen there. But it was good. And convention, I think Garrett Zahner, Dr. Garrett, did a phenomenal job running the convention. I want to say he was chairman pro temp when we got the 3 bylaw stuff done. And they were done 1, 2, 3. Garrett knows how to run a tight ship, And a little praise, because, I do bash them when they do bad stuff. Let me praise it. Montgomery County was able to count their votes in a reasonable amount of time this time. Very good, Montgomery County. And, very good. Glad you're able to count now. Maybe I think the abacuses helped that I left for them at the Ocean City convention on their chairs. I think that helps them now, which is good. And it was great. We heard from all.
Were Dell and Dennis there then, taking care of that?
Dennis was not there. Dell was there. And hold on. Dave's having issues getting on, Dr. Dave. Hold on, let me send him another link. And as a, it was a lot of, I heard a lot of people say, I think there's something wrong with your camera, Dave, because it doesn't show, it says video not available. Right, but I also heard a lot of people talk about the president's arrest last week as well, and how this is a grand conspiracy to squash the Trump insurgency. They're so afraid. But I've got a little bit of different spin on this. Every time they do this, he ticks up in the Republican primary polls, right? What if they're more afraid of Governor DeSantis because Governor DeSantis they won't be able to do to Governor DeSantis what they can do to President Trump.
Yeah, I think the Democrats actually, if they had their choice who to run against, I think they actually want to run against Trump because
Yep.
they think they can beat him. They think all these things, are big negatives.
And I know it's early in the show and we're getting to but let me tell you this. If President Nixon and Vice President Agnew had this kind of press corps in the 70s, let me tell you, Vice President Agnew would have gone on to become president. I mean, come on. Joe Biden is making Spiro Agnew great again. He's making Richard Nixon great again. Watergate pales in comparison to Big Guy's little deal. Is that his name? Big Guy or Big Man? What's the guy's name? Big Guy? I think it's Big Guy, right?
Who are you referring to?
Joe Biden. Is it Big Guy? Is that what is that his code name for the?
Maybe so. I don't know.
They call him Big Guy or Big Man or whatever, Big Mac. I don't know.
You're talking about like the Secret Service name and what they identify these guys for?
No, what Hunter refers to in his emails, the Big Guy.
I don't know.
Yeah. Every time they say Big Guy, I think of that old cartoon Big Guy and Rusty. It was Fox when Fox first launched their Saturday morning the cartoons. Big Guy and Rusty. It was basically like if you remember Johnny Sacco and his giant robot, it was basically a rip off of that. There was a little boy that controlled a giant robot. Jeff, you probably don't even remember Johnny Sacco and his giant robot, do you?
Vaguely. It sounds memorable, but I don't recall the exact cartoon.
Yeah, we never got it in first runs. I don't even think Don saw it in first runs. That's how old it is.
Yeah, I don't think either Jeff or I have quite the encyclopedic knowledge of some of these programs, especially the more obscure things. Of like, what the heck is he talking about?
That was actually a pretty popular show. I mean, it was basically the pre-Ultraman for Ultraman, I think. And then Ultraman became an Enviro in the 90s, in his 90s incarnation. He was fighting pollution.
I think that part of it, too, is that, when I was with my kids, cartoons, when my kids were younger, were so different than when I grew up.
Yeah.
I didn't want them watching things like, Captain Ted and the Planeteers and stuff, how it was already shifting. I think your kids probably had the Johnny Quest reboot. I'm the thing that I had them when they were younger. I mean, it's like go buy the Johnny Quest DVDs or whatever, and let them watch some of that. Or I had them hooked on the British Avengers, show.
Oh, it's Emma Peel.
Yep. I
had Mother and Father.
I had DVDs for that, and they would watch those. You can do a lot of things with kids. You can actually have kind of like, here, watch this. This is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I did not like the remake movie they did, though, by the way. They made that in 98.
The one with, like, what was it, Ray Fiennes and that?
The guy from, what was that quiz show, Scandal movie they did? He was in that, too. I'm trying to think who that was.
Yeah, it was, look, I mean, from an Avenger standpoint, there is one John Steed, there's one Emma Peel. Those characters were really unique. Trying to remake those characters,
wasn't John Steed though?
And Diana Rigg, they owned that show.
Yeah, and then there was The Saint, which was another great show.
Oh yeah, well, Roger Moore and The Saint type of thing.
Jeff, do you remember The Saint?
Yeah,
Channel 5 Channel 5 did reruns of it.
That's where I watched them.
I never watched them, but I do remember those. I mean, I remember some of the more obscure, TV shows and such. I remember, like, Greatest American Hero, and there was
obscure.
What's that?
That's not that obscure. Greatest American Hero.
Okay, so there's that. And there's there's one other ones. Remember the original
Super Train?
Well,
Super Train.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It was supposed to be like Love Boat on rails.
That was
They
quite.
didn't quite know what to do with the show. It was like Love Boat, or is it a mystery? You know, because they really had no direction for that show. Super Train, you know.
Anyway, I was gonna say when I do remember as a kid coming home and watching cartoons or animated stuff. So
Mhm.
is the kind of the Marty Krofft Superstars? You may
Oh
recall
yeah,
that with
Yeah.
because that was the original Land of the Lost. It had Sigmund the Sea Monster,
yeah.
Electro Moon and Dinah Girl.
And you know who was in Sigmund the Sea Monster? The kid from Buffy and Jody, Family Affair, the Brian Keith
Okay,
show. Yeah, he was because Jody. I think did Jody is the one that OD'd, or was it?
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, Johnny Whitaker. I think that's what happened to him.
Yeah, he's still around. He actually did it. He also had another movie where he was like a kid that died and went to heaven, and he had no jobs in heaven for him because he was too young.
I think both those kids actually just struggled. I mean, that's a whole nother thing there where a lot of those child stars
Yeah.
they were tied to those programs, and after that, they most of them never got another real role.
Yeah.
They struggled. Even go to different strokes. So Dana Plato.
Oh yeah.
You just have this long list of kids who Hollywood and everything like that. They wound up in drugs and over ODing and all kinds of stuff. It's
Well,
really
Todd Bridges actually ended up on. He was on Bone and the Beautiful for a while.
didn't he get arrested for something?
Yeah, he did. He got arrested. He's in jail now.
Yeah, you can do a where are they now thing. It's like some of that is pretty.
Yeah, I know it's like, but I think the kids from Facts of Life, same studio, and they all turned out very different. The Facts of Life gals,
well, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have
Yeah, I
Facts of
mean,
Life.
no, but none of them on the show ended up with like becoming drug addicts or out of wedlock pregnancies. They didn't do much after Facts of Life. I think Kim Field was on Martin's show, I think.
Mhm.
And if you remember, there's a liberal radio guy named Roland Martin. You ever
Who's
heard of a
that?
guy, Don Roland Martin?
Name sounds familiar.
Yeah, it is familiar. And the funniest part is when I first heard about it, Eugene Craig was the one that told me. I go, oh, you mean Roland Martin's laughing?
Oh yeah,
And he goes,
Yeah, yeah. That was the journalist, the black journalist guy, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Did he quit or did he get fired from that job? I can't start his
Maybe he
own.
got bored. I don't know. Maybe he got bored.
Yeah. Think-
And Eugene, you're watching. Let us know what happened to Roland Martin. Did he get fired? Or did he quit? Or did he just get bored? And then we have also coming through. And Roland Martin is laughing. Was that the one that Nixon was on? Did
I
Nixon do
mean,
an appearance on Laughing?
he may have. I mean, that show was so popular. They could get almost anybody to get on that show.
They did a crossover with I Dream of Jeannie once when they went to California. And that was one where Roger wanted to become a producer, and he was representing. He was Jeannie's agent, and they were on there as well. I thought that was like one of the funnier episodes. And speaking of child stars, like Jay North, he stopped acting. I mean, he was the voice for Bam Bam Rubble, the grown-up version of but he really didn't do much after that. But anyways, where were we? We were talking about something more important when we got to these offshore
The usual-
television programs.
the
Chris
usual-
Christie during the intro for the show, I think is what.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
derailed.
Chris Christie. Yeah,
Chris
it'd be great
Christie
if
and Donald Trump's indictment
You know-
and arrest.
it would be great if I get Scott Baio and Kirk Cameron to do the intro also for us at some point. That would be hilarious. As we know, Scott Baio is actually a fan of the club. He follows the club on Twitter, and he's retweeted us a few times. But anyways, Donald Trump was arrested this past week, and I wish they would have done the mugshot because he could have had the chance to do the Tom DeLay big grin smile when they do the mugshot picture.
But I mean, all of this stuff is such a production. I mean,
It's theatrics. Yeah.
leading up to the where he was going to go to the courthouse and surrender and the whole 9 yards. We kept seeing all these pictures of all these boxes, scattered in these rooms, bathroom and stuff like that in Mar-a-Lago. And I'm like, so I mean, we're only talking about 38 pages of documents, and they're showing these boxes as the media's like trying to make this thing like, oh, it's like this big thing because he's been indicted because he's got all these documents. Well, it's a small number of documents. Whether or not he really should have been handling those or having those in his possession, that'll have to be left up to a jury or whatever, the judge to decide along the line. But
so what I heard was this: is that it's actually more documents, but because they can only present some as evidence, they can't present like all the documents because they're classified. So they have to pick and choose like what documents they're going to use in the case, because they can't use all of the documents because they present them as evidence. That's my understanding, but again, I could be wrong.
And I think the biggest outrage about this whole thing is overnight we have become Nigeria. This is what they do in third world banana republics with tin horn dictators. They go out and arrest their opponent. I mean, they did this in Pakistan. Remember Benazir Bhutto got arrested, and then she got blown up also. But they do that in Pakistan. They do that. I mean, they do that all. They go and arrest. They did that in Voltron.
The thing is, again, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is unique in terms of having classified documents, but he was ordered to turn them all over, and he did not. And basically lied to the FBI, which gets you in kind of trouble if you do that. So.
But here's the thing, that would be one thing. But you got the Penn Biden Center, you got all Joey B's stuff, right next door to the Chinese communists. I mean, what he's done is far more egregious. I mean, putting his classified documents in his Corvette. Come on, Joey.
I mean, I look. I mean,
Joey has the mentality of Dennis the Menace's best friend Joey from the show.
I mean, as Jeff alluded to, mentioned earlier, in terms of it's not that Trump is unique in having these documents because Pence found some. I mean, this comes up a lot with these politicians. Stuff, when you're leaving office, stuff winds up getting into boxes, and people gather the stuff up, and then you wind up inadvertently getting some other documents. If you go through and then you find them, then you should report them right away. I think the problem with Trump really overall, and I know a lot of conservatives don't agree with this, is just that, Trump kind of basically, hung himself out there to say, come and get me, make my day. You can't.
Was this his George W. Bush's "Bring It On" moment?
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's like, go ahead and bring it on. I mean,
well, if he can declassify documents with his mind, that's kind of asking for trouble too. So
yeah, no, I mean, all the things he said. So I mean, if Trump had been more cooperative, the chances are nothing much would have happened because his actions gave the opposition, the Justice Department, everybody, the ammunition, everything they needed to go after him and pursue this. Okay.
Yeah, because Pence had some too, but he turned them over. So that was pretty much the story.
I mean, that's the thing. But his complete really being uncooperative about this, kind of just set him up. A lot of people say, oh, they're going after him.
Joe Biden had them.
Had him. To a certain extent, yes, but Trump is. These kinds of things that happen to Trump here, what's happened to him in New York, what may happen to him, in Georgia, and what will come up. These are things that were preventable, but Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, basically just said, "Come on, get me, I dare you to do this." And they've called his bluff, and they've indicted him. So he's been indicted twice. He could be indicted a third time in Georgia. Now, will any of this really matter in the campaign? Right now,
his base loves this.
As Dwight said, every time this stuff happens, Trump's poll numbers, they don't go down. They tend to steady or go up. So, if you're Ron...
That's the old adage, like there is no bad, publicity.
Right.
Any publicity is good publicity.
If you're Ron DeSantis, and you're kind of like, I'm a law-abiding guy. I can't get much traction right now because Trump is sucking up all the headlines with this, with being indicted. A former president being indicted, and having to go to court in this whole 9 yards, and and he's still 30 points ahead in the initial polls. Now, when when the rubber hits the road, things may change. Once.
Although, if you look at the state by state polls, there's a few early states where Ron DeSantis has got a commanding lead over Donald Trump.
And DeSantis will, he picked up Governor Stitt's endorsement. So
Yeah.
every time somebody endorses DeSantis, Trump just goes ballistic. It's really kind
Maybe. Hey, what do you think of this? I'm just having a little bit of fun here. But what do you think about this? What if there's a cabal with Merrick Garland? Every time something good happens to DeSantis, they decide to arrest Trump, so people stop talking about what good happened to Ron DeSantis. And here's the other thing. One thing that does bother me about President Trump is he is going soft on the family value stuff. I know they go, the Disney, he says, oh, stop picking on Disney. He didn't like the Florida abortion law. I mean, come on, are you a fan? Because, people we've worked for, and and your dad, and like Paul Weyrich and company, we were the family values crowd. We were the crowd that said, we would, I think if Paul were around, I think Paul would probably be supportive of like a Michael Pence or a Ron DeSantis for president.
I think Pence, to me, he's the most presidential.
He's the grown-up in the room.
Right, he is. Will he get a whole lot of traction? I don't really think so, because he's not dynamic enough. Yeah. But he's a pretty smart cookie, and he will be tarred a little bit for his association with Trump. So he's tried to separate himself from that a little bit as well. But it's going to be tough. On the social issues, this is the thing about Trump to me, is that I don't think Trump has ever really been a conservative. Trump is an opportunist. Okay. He gathered up, and convinced people to vote for him because he was going to be all these things, and he picked these positions. He's putting his finger to the wind, and in his mind right now, he thinks that the Disney backlash in Florida is a negative for DeSantis, and then he's better off on public opinion jumping on and going with the Disney flow and things like that. The abortion issue has hurt the Republican Party because they've been so strict on trying to ratchet back and say it's got to be a 6-week ban instead of a 15-week ban and all these other things.
Well,
the Republicans got to understand is like, maybe morally that is the right thing to do. Politically, it's like suicide. In a lot of areas, even if you're, you got to watch.
Remember, we're the party of principles as well as law and order. That's the other thing we are, also the party of law and order.
Yeah, this is what drives me crazy, Dwight. It's just that we have great positions. I mean, we are morally.
We're right on every single issue. Every single issue.
But but we're not. We don't really define it very well. When it comes to how we let the media define a lot of these issues and the party, and therefore we wind up losing elections. We field terrible candidates in races we should win. We've talked about that numerous times. These are things where the Republicans, how many times have we shot ourselves in the foot because we've done it to ourselves?
Yeah, more times than once.
We all know that the media is terrible, that they're not going to be for us, and yet we let them get away with stuff and setting up the whole thing. What are they doing with the Trump situation? I mean, besides talking about all this stuff and trying to make this thing like Trump has run off in the middle of the night with a gazillion documents that he doesn't.
And there's a point where I do disagree with President who's neo-isolationist positions, like he's anti for the defense of Ukraine, and his scurrilous attacks on President Bush and the liberation of Iraq. It's unbecoming, frankly.
Yeah, well, I mean, Trump on the Ukraine thing. I mean, he's aligned himself, with a lot of these, hardcore Republicans as a small group who are against it, And I understand, part of the problem every time we fund these things is that there's really no good accounting of what happens to money.
Yeah, but look, at the end of the day, it works out for us. Like Angola, we supported the resistance there. We supported the Sandinistas in the Contras in Nicaragua against the Sandinistas there. We supported the Democratic-backed government of El Salvador against the communist insurgents there. We didn't put any boots on the ground, and they were able to take care. All they're asking for us to give them guns and weapons. I mean, look at Ukraine. They're actually having offensive successes against the mighty Russian army, frankly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Which,
that's the thing. I mean, I think you have to look at it like that. Like, I am under no impression, that when we pour money into these efforts, that it's all going to get to where it's supposed to be. You go into these countries where you have no control. There's corruption. As much as I would say, I think Zelensky's an interesting guy, and he's definitely been an overall plus for Ukraine. There's stuff that happens that it's just part and parcel of the culture in these countries, and that they're going to rake off the top and all this kind of stuff. But when you read these stories, I mean, yeah, they're not having like huge successes in there, but they are destroying Russian tanks. There's a story now where Russia, they're having a hard time because they've been drafting so many people to go to and fight on the front lines into the war effort. They're facing a worker shortage because they're taking people out of their workforce and throwing them onto the front lines. There was a great story in the Journal the other day about this guy. He surrendered to Ukraine to the drone. Mm-hmm. He was in a trench with like 3 other guys, and these drones were armed, and they were dropping bombs into these trenches, and this guy's scurrying around. One of the guys, he was so tired. I mean, he'd been hit by shrapnel from one of the bombs that he actually took a gun and shot himself in the head, rifle. Mm-hmm. Another guy, took a grenade and blew himself up. This guy, he was under such heavy siege. He was like, they interviewed him. The Wall Street Journal interviewed him in a detention camp, and they actually have a picture of this guy doing like, he put his hands up and then put him behind his, everything like this, and the word was that the drone operators was like, okay, what's this guy doing? We got to contact our superiors, and they went to go grab him, and he told the Journal that heck. I mean, he's got a daughter that just turned 4. He just missed her birthday because he's now in this prison, this detention camp thing. But he would rather go back to Russia and spend the rest of his life in prison at this point than have to live under. He's done. He's just like.
Hey, but the prisoners are being sent to fight too, so it's not like you go to jail. You're gonna go back.
Decent life in Russia until they drafted him and forced him into this war effort.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. I mean, and we have, you have the head of the Wagner group, who's basically the mercenary group,
I hear they've been criticizing Putin.
Oh yeah,
too.
he's been criticizing. I'm surprised the guy's still alive.
Yeah. What is it, plutonium number 10 or whatever, or number 9 that they used to kill the other guy that was a critic of Vladimir Putin?
Well, what they were trying
what's
to
that
poison all those guys. Like, yeah, I mean.
Remember Paul Shanklin did a little song about that, on Love Potion number 9. But it's I keep going back to that scene from Deep Space Nine where the Federation retake Deep Space Nine and they block the wormhole from any more Gemidars coming in from the Gamma Quadrant. And the leader of the founder, I guess this war is going to take a little longer than we anticipated. And I think that's what some of the Jews are told to.
It's just, I mean, I do this count just to see, because it just astonishes me every time I'm updating the count on the war. It's like, where's the end of this? But
he had General McClellan leading his forces. The reincarnation of General McClellan is really leading the Russian armies, just like he told President Lincoln, don't worry, this Battle of Bull Run will be like a Sunday pick, and we'll mop up the Confederates there. Yeah, it didn't work out too well.
Yeah, no, I mean it's bad for Putin, but Putin's not one to give up at this stage. But Ukraine, because of their support from the West with all the materiel and everything like that,
Yep.
they've been able to hold firm. And this is definitely not what Putin was expecting. There is no way Putin thought, what are we up to? In another 3 weeks we'll be at 500 days. There,
Yeah.
he was expecting this to be what, 2 or 3 days at most.
Yeah, I think a week was the bad scenario is 1 week.
Yeah.
Best scenario 1 day.
Yeah, I mean this could go on considerably time more, because as long as
Well,
the Allies are willing to supply them with with weaponry, Ukraine.
As those Russian bumper stickers people have on cars now say Ukraine Arabic for Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, no, I mean this is. I mean, I
Well,
think
it's a little different than Afghanistan. I mean, so this is more of a traditional war, and yeah, it's almost like a war of attrition at this point. But down to your point, I mean, as long as
No, but
Ukraine
I like
has
that bumper sticker because the lefties were throwing around bumper stickers that Iraq, Vietnamese for Vietnam or something like that, or Arabic for Vietnam. No, that's what it was. Iraq.
anyway, as I say,
Yeah.
so it is depleting resources on both sides, but Ukraine, partly because Ukraine actually is, a better trading partners in some things. I mean, they have technical resources, not just hackers and stuff, but they actually have,
Some of the
almost
best, some really good, affordable developers are in Ukraine too.
yeah, and so they actually have, exportable talent. Anyway, so they're getting support from other countries. Russia is being, has sanctions. I don't know if there's any embargoes, but Russia's hurting more than Ukraine is. And if anyone's going to come out worse for this at the end, I think it's going to be Russia, because as you're saying, Russia is now digging into its own people, hurting its own economy even worse. There is no benefit to Russia to continue this war, but again, Putin just does not want to give up. So at some point, something is going to, it's almost like Gorbachev with with Reagan. It's like the Cold War was a war of attrition economically too, but Russia couldn't keep up the arms race with America because we took too many resources. I think we're going to see the same thing with Ukraine, is that Russia is just basically going to bow out at some point and just cut their loss, but it's going to be bad for them. It's going to take a long time for them to recover.
Yeah, look, and Ukraine has done this while NATO, the allies, while they've given them, the material and things like that, and some money to help out with this, they haven't sent in any troops. If NATO sends in troops, Russia can't compete with that at that point. I mean,
they just move
as it is. Any one of these NATO allies, goes in there basically and sends in troops. Russia's doomed. From that
I mean, look at this. I mean, they sent nuclear weapons to Belarus, and Belarus says these are 3 times more powerful than the bombs we used on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It would be fun if we just sent them a couple of bombs and we say this is 100 times more powerful than we dropped on Nagasaki.
Well, those bombs were literally the first atomic bombs we developed. So yes, those are almost like experiments. I mean, yes, we've
they were. It's like
every nuclear arsenal, is more powerful than that. So saying it's bigger than those is really not a standard. I mean, we got the fuel air bomb is more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb.
Oh yes, that, or even actually the Daisy Cutter. That's pretty potent too.
Look, I mean, and I think back to your good old pal Joey B there, Dwight. I mean, this war is also part of his legacy in a sense, because these kinds of things that are happening are happened on his watch. I mean, Putin may have talked about things and thought about things during the Trump years, but he wasn't going to test Trump.
No.
North Korea wasn't going to test Trump. But now you have U.S. and Korea with their joint operations, ramping up to almost unprecedented levels because they see the threat. We're watching Taiwan because we don't know what China's going to do over there. So there's a lot of tension going on there that really didn't exist because no one wanted to really test Trump's mettle, in terms of what would happen on the international front. But boy, Joe Biden comes into office. And all of these things, just kind of all hell breaks loose overseas.
And let's not forget Joe Biden's other legacy: inflation. How much do you
One
think
of your favorite topics.
How much do you think I paid for this pack?
Probably $6 or $7 by now, at least.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's easy to paint the president as being the cause for inflation. So certainly didn't help. But
I mean, his failed
partly the
policies.
COVID and the economic policy does make a big difference. But part of it too was the bailout, for COVID and everything else like that really put a lot of pressure on businesses, and part of that is the whole Gen Z, they don't want to work because they're used to now like living at home, and they have more disposable income. They realize that
I mean,
if they
look at
have
this,
to move out and
Jeff.
live on their own, it costs money.
This is not even a 16 ounce. These used to be 16 ounces part of these cans of garbanzo beans, right? They used to be about 50 cents each, or 54 cents, some of that, right? $1.99 a can. Now on sale you get them for $1.29, but it's still a lot more than what they used to be. Come on, it's like these are like everyday things,
Yeah, but part of it too is you have to realize that
garbanzo beans. I'm sorry, it's not. I don't think I've ever had those in my cupboard at home.
Right,
Really?
but think of it too. Like we're used to like the airline hiking up prices when gas prices go up. What about the trucking industry? I mean, all of our produce, none of it's domestic anymore. It's all imported.
Well, you heard
we're
Pete
paying.
Buttigieg, yeah. And Pete said because of the Interstate 95 collapse, he goes, "Oh, things are going to be more expensive now." Because I'm like, Mayor Pete,
Do you remember how crazy things got when I forget what the gas company was that got hacked, and gas prices just went through the roof, and it basically shut down the shipping industry down in the southern states, and it's just like we don't realize how much we depend upon our trucking industry, and it's part of it is gas prices, part of it's wages, part of it is the fact that there's a lot of shippers and stuff that aren't helping out the truckers. And
my point is,
this is a lot of things together. I'm saying there is cost of inflation and such, but a lot of it is not inherently in the product. A lot of it is traced to like wages or shipping costs and those kind of things. And the whole thing's just gone crazy.
You know how much these are? $4.99. $4.99 for
Where'd you get those at the gas station?
Yes, I got these at the Safeway actually. These are, but
I didn't mind spending all this money on this stuff. I cringe at what he's paying for these things.
I know,
yeah,
me too.
I go to Sam's Club and get like a 20 pack for like $20 or something.
But you can't get the cinnamon ones. You get the white ones, the regular ones.
The good kind.
These
The peppermint
these are
ones.
really good.
All right.
These are really good. The cinnamon ones are good. Remember Dentine?
We need to have like a chart of like the Werther's candies, like how the process goes over time, and just have
I do like that's I'm 50 years old now, as are you now, Jeff. You're in the 50 club too.
I thought you were 51.
I'll be 51 this July.
Right.
But 50 means it's okay to like Werther's originals.
Yeah, but you're a class of '89 at Blair, right?
Yeah.
I'm class of '91. How can you be the same age as I am?
Because I skipped the 4th grade. That's how I'm the same age as you are.
But
anyway,
we've got that comment from Craig. I mean, I was telling my wife today, just like we've seen all these increases. There's a lot of things that will not go back to pre-pandemic levels.
Mm-hmm.
There are price increases that are now built in for the long haul. And some of it as you've talked about, Jeff, as Craig talked about in his comments, I mean, they're cyclical things. We now have kind of a new base of costs. Wages are way up from what they were, several years ago. Transportation costs, they're way up. They're going to, gas prices are fluctuating a little bit. I mean, they're down from the $5 level, but it's hard to see them going down to $2.50 levels, type of thing like that. Diesel prices are down, which is thankful for the truckers. But, when you're the manufacturer, you're always kind of like, I've got to keep up with costs. I've got to look ahead and see what's going on there. I got killed when prices ratcheted up quickly because I still had inventory, and I had things that were out there that I wasn't, that I still had, I was making, but I was now finding the inputs now were starting to go up faster. And I had contracts at a fixed price that I was selling the stuff for. So there's a lot of companies that made up. Corporations are doing fairly well because they love inflation in general because it allows them to build a little cushion into their pricing.
Look at the price of cars.
Yeah,
the price of cars, price of
that's
used.
not going down.
Actually, there are people that are speculating saying used car prices are about to
Yeah, but
start.
they're not gonna hit 2019 levels or
No, they're
2020
not.
levels. That's gone. Those days are gone. You're gonna now have to fork out a lot of money for any kind of car, used or new. It's a
I
and
know.
you're just not gonna see the types of things going on there like that anymore.
And the dealerships aren't giving those incentives. Like when I got my Yukon, I got like $3,000 back from General Motors. They're not doing that. And I remember when GM was giving like $10,000 back on cars
Yeah, I
a
mean,
year.
housing prices, supply and demand. I mean, there's still a pretty heavy demand, but the
Yeah,
supply isn't there with homes. I mean, remote work and a lot of the other things, people are not moving like they used to, right? I mean, they're for new jobs and things like that. So houses don't open up. I mean, Spencer's looking for a house, trying to think about trying to relocate to
in
these.
one of the hottest real estate markets in the
But
country.
with interest rates and the price of house, I told him today, I said, look, if you come back east, you're probably going to have to rent for a little while to study the situation, hope that interest rates come down. And then you're just going to have to, if you really want a house of any kind, you're going to have to suck it up and pay more than you want to pay, because I just don't see how that's ever going to level.
Does he want? Where does he want to be in Arizona? Scottsdale?
No, he's in Arizona. He wants to be here.
Oh, he wants to come back. Okay.
Yeah, he wants to come back here. So I mean, they're looking at Northern Virginia. They're looking about, do we have to go to Stafford or something like that?
Well, Northern Virginia
Yeah.
has property. I mean, has personal taxes as well. Besides all the.
It's actually cheaper to live in Maryland. I mean, he could find a nice place in.
Well, it's cheaper to live in
Frederick.
Delaware, really, but
Yeah,
or
but I mean,
Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania's
he
not
could
too far.
find.
Actually, I know people that live in Pennsylvania because just over the border,
Yeah.
the price is not too bad. I mean, Pennsylvania is not a great state as far as economics. It's better than like West Virginia, but relatively speaking, a lot of Pennsylvania is not as well off as other states. But again, from a commuting standpoint, I can be in Pennsylvania in 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops. So living there and commuting would still be a lot easier than having to pay for a home here at twice the cost.
Yeah, I mean, and those that's all good advice too. Think, what he wants to do. I mean, he would love to stay with the organizations he's with, and stay in the nonprofit sector and deal with all these kinds of issues he gets to deal with. But he doesn't know, for another 30 years or whatever it is, will that organization be around, or can he, hopscotch to something else and build a career out of that,
He's
or
a
does,
comms guy, right?
or does he look? He's more of he's a policy guy. He loves,
Okay.
he's doing stuff on public sector unions right now, and research and commentary and stuff like that. And he looks at a government job, a federal government job, as being, something that would be steady. But that would mean, in all likelihood, that you need to stay somewhere in the DMV in order to make that work in most
Well,
cases.
the government though does have the Metro DC area does they have a what is it? I forget what to call it. It's a price compensation for the base GS level. So the
Yeah.
cost of living, whatever. So the fact is, if you're living in this area, I don't know if it really fully compensates for it, but you do get paid more
Yeah.
for the same GS level living in this area.
I said, look, if you can, even if you find a government job, if you find an agency that says you got to be, you have to be in office maybe 2 or 3 days a week, that you could do that by living further out, and just if you're only having to go in the office, 2 or 3 days a week,
hmm
it's not that bad. You
Like, I mean, NASA's, I think they want people to come in 3 days a week. I think the compromise is 1 day a week now. Uh, NASA Kennedy is just 1 day a week, which
Well,
Bats is really enjoying.
I mean, the government, everybody, all the, high tech, these guys, they want people back in the office, but after having this period of time when they didn't force them back to the office, you got a lot of
Yeah.
people, I think you even alluded to this, Jeff, a little bit, people who don't want to go to the office anymore, or they don't want to work like that anymore. So then you're like, what do you do? I was like, I need this employee, but they refuse to basically come into
Yeah.
the office. But they're valuable to me. It's not like I can replace them. There are people who are harder to replace, and you're like, oh, great. Now what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like what I found is from the pan. We went into lockdown mode in March of 2020 after Pi Day. That was the last time we had a normal day. It was Pi Day 2020.
I'm glad we have a day to remember as our marker.
Yeah, that was also St. Patrick's Day weekend too. And the lockdown started Sunday. That's when everything was shut down Sunday. Then they opened up carry out and stuff like that. And it was, it was an intrigue. But I tell you this, the efficiency has remained the same or gotten better. Like Sparkles, Sparkplug, and Bats and company, they just bang stuff out. It's like they're very efficient at it.
Yeah, it's kind
Well, I mean, part of it too is like, if you look at the corporate culture, a lot of the times people can't do work because they're always in meetings. So that the fact is with Zoom and such, you've got people able to, go to meetings either less or more efficiently. And it's the whole thing's like, the joke is like, couldn't this just been an email? People think twice about setting up meetings because, it's just sometimes more efficient
Come
just
on,
to send
Jeff!
an email.
I love meetings. Actually, I do enjoy those because you get. And also, I kind of like
Well,
the in
some people enjoy
person.
talking more than others too. So
I know,
yeah,
I
that's
do,
basically it.
and I enjoy the interactions of. I mean, what I think one of the best things I remember when we ever wanted a meeting, say at NIST or at NASA, all the conferences would always be booked for something. Now I can book any of the conference rooms, whether it be NIH, NASA, USDA, FDA. There's no problems booking a conference room anymore.
And we know, Jeff, that Dwight has rarely been at a loss for words.
No, I have never been.
The man can pontificate on anything.
I can. I mean, just look how long did we go on about
As
Johnny Sokko,
evidenced
the
by
giant
this
robot.
show, we can go on and on and on.
I know, it's like
yeah,
the
the
show
fact that
that
we never
never
end up
ends.
time.
Well, Jeff, we used to do this in the studios.
I know you said it before. It's like 3
4
hour
hours.
shows.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, 4
Yeah.
hours. We've done 4 hours.
Okay.
We did cake tastings. We did a lot of fun stuff. That's the only thing. Maybe we should do a show at your place, Don, at some point, so we could do a tasting or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if we have a 3 hour show, our 3 viewers will probably go down to less than 3.
No. Don actually at Don's was really good because we had Bats used to be the producer, and he would basically say he'd set an alarm, he'd have a clock going, so we had to end in 1 hour because he was commuting from Annapolis, and he had like a 2 hour.
He was probably going to shut everything down if we didn't finish on time.
Yeah, exactly. So. And also at Don's, we were very respectful to his. We appreciated being in the Irvine studios, and we got in and out an hour. I missed the pizza.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We'd have some pizza or whatever before.
That's what I missed the most, actually, the pizza and the shamrock. Oh, but have you had the Grimace shake, by the way, Don?
What's that?
The Grimace shake.
No, I saw that, and I'm like, what? It's like a confetti shake or something, or
it's purple.
Purple.
Our friend Chris has had one. He was telling me it's an app exclusive. And he also tells me they're still doing free.
What does it taste like? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
grapes.
I don't know. McDonald's had had the Cardi B special one time or something. I don't know. It's just they do weird things.
But I do want to.
I mean, that's McDonald's in their marketing because they've done. Didn't they do a BTS one? People love that stuff. Yeah. They just.
Well, back in the day, we used to, I don't know if it's a Happy Meal or what, but we still have the Star Wars commemorative plates at McDonald's, because they used to have the thing where there's
Did they have plates or was it just glasses?
No, they had glasses and plates because I remember having both the glasses, the Star Wars glasses, and the plates, and you could get those. Now it's like good luck finding those.
See, this is where me being a year older than you.
I think I still have a Star Wars glass from Burger King.
Yep, they did too. Yep.
I tell you, they also had Peanuts glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And they also had Flintstones glasses in the late 70s.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell people that you could get gas for like 19 cents a gallon back in the day, and they would give you plates and glasses and silverware kind of stuff like that.
Do you remember, Don, around the bicentennial? Do you guys remember the Grand Union?
Oh yeah.
Okay, around the bicentennial, they had these Liberty Bell plates. They were you spent I think it was like you spent $25, buy $25 worth of groceries, they give you a free plate. They give you a free plate.
I still remember my father buying Funk and Wagnall's encyclopedia because they lured you at that Safeway because you could buy the initial volumes for like 99 cents before you had to do it.
It's a subscription thing. You'd like every month you get like another volume.
Yeah, after that. But I mean, it was still far cheaper than Encyclopedia Britannica or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, World Book, I thought World Book was actually far superior to Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, I think World Book is still around. I think they actually still sell those.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can buy cutouts of encyclopedias to put on bookshelves to look at it.
Well, I heard a discussion about like encyclopedias the other day, and somebody was saying that just like at least if you had the physical encyclopedia, nobody's going to be altering it a la Wikipedia and changing the facts,
or going in and doing edit code and then changing it, and then taking a screenshot of it.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Wikipedia is kind of an experiment too. So the fact is that people can edit Wikipedia pages, but it also has a history of changes too, and so you can always go back. So it's got like infinite undos. Like you can deface a wiki page, but you're never going to like permanently alter it because it always has a record.
I keep adding myself as a famous alumni from Blair High School, and I'm still. Somebody comes in there and removes me.
Goldie Hawn, Connie Chang, Dwight Patel.
No, but here, okay. Some of our classmates are on there too. Like Howie Gobioff is in there, and I'm like, if Howie can be in it, I can be in it. I know.
I'm famous because I told you I'm famous.
Yeah. Infamous or famous? I don't know.
It's like that's an old Bill McNeil line from News Radio. I'm infinitely famous. So
I'm sure Craig is a famous alumni of his high school.
Yes, I'm sure he is.
Was he WJ?
I believe so. Craig, were you Walter Johnson or were you Whitman?
Didn't we have like we've had some good personalities come out of Blair, but I think we've had like one or two really bad say
Jack Jordan. Jack Jordan. But
I wasn't out in a nice way that wouldn't get us like.
But here's the thing. It's funny. Jack's actually a good guy. He had mental issues, and I actually spoke with him, and
I think a lot of classmates had mental issues.
He lives in young Ryan's neighborhood. Because it's funny. Ryan and I were talking. He goes, when I was like 6 years old, all the parents were freaked out because some weirdo was moving into the neighborhood, and then we kind of connect. I go, was his name Jack Jordan? But and then we have some other people too that are even more sinister than that. From Blair that's come out of there. But Robin Ficker is a Blair alumnus too, famous. He's on that list.
So I decided to. I looked. I'm just I'm on here. I did. Who's a famous alumni? Yeah. So. A search says Morgan Wooten, the coach. Paul Bernstein, 1961. Ben Stein, 1962. Goldie Hawn, 63. Connie Chung, 64. Chris Sullivan, Outback Steakhouse founder, 66. So there's some of the other people.
Yeah. And you got Karen Chetry. She's recent. She was our classmate.
Sly Stallone attended for a brief period of time before he went to Philly.
Yeah, and... but who has Einstein has Joan Jett, or is it Get Smart? One or the other.
What? Get Joan Jett or Get Smart? What are you talking about?
As alumni, no. Joan Jett may have gone to Wheaton High School, but I know Jeff Brown said something about Get Smart. What's this? Jerry Adams? No, what's the guy's name? Who played Get Smart?
Don Adams.
Don Adams. There you go.
Oh yeah.
Jerry Adams is the freedom fighter. But he went to Einstein or something like that.
It's been so long since I watched that. Was it? I know it's Agent 99, and what was Agent the Smart? Was he like 6 or something, or I don't know.
He didn't have. I don't think he had a designation. Or was he 86?
He had 86. You said.
Was it 99? Barbara Feldon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the more famous
I love that
numbers.
show. Gosh, I love that show.
Yeah, I remember the intro with the doors opening in the elevators.
Yeah. By the way, if you ever go to NIH and go into their main administrative building, it's kind of like that. When I go in there, I go from the parking garage. I go down some escalators. Doors open up. Then I go. Then another set of doors. Then escalator. Then another set of doors. Escalators. Another set of doors. And then finally you get to an elevator that takes you up. Then there's another set of doors. Then you get into the office there. In the old Claude Pepper building.
All right. So Wikipedia says notable alumni from Einstein. Some of your favorites: Phil Andrews, Mark Elrich.
Why would Mark Elrich have gone to Einstein if he grew up in Tacoma Park?
It says
Why didn't he want to go to Blair? Inquiring minds want to know.
it's some guy who played for Penn State and the Atlanta Falcons, who I don't know.
But I mean, Chick Hernandez also went to Blair. We There's a number of alums. You know who else is in there? Manish Agarwala is also a famous alum because he's a member of Mensa. He's one of our classmates. Actually, no, he was your class, wasn't he, Manish? Jeff?
Manish? I don't recognize that name.
Agarwala? Or he may have been like,
Oh.
he would have been. He's
That
probably a year
sounds
older
a
than
little
you.
familiar. Yeah, I recognize the name, but he wasn't in my class.
Yeah, he was. I think Jeff Learman's also on that famous list too.
It's like, when did Sonny Bono go to WJ? Man, that
I know. We also had Elisa Bocanegros. She was in our class, a member of our Republican Club, and she's famous. She was on. She was a regular cast on Young and the Restless for a long time, and she was also on Judging Amy, and a bunch of other shows. But yeah, her famous role is being on The Young and the Restless. Or was it Bold and the Beautiful? One or the other, All those Bob Bell shows. Yeah. All those Bob Bell shows sounded like the same storylines are recycled. It's kind of like if you watch Everybody Loves Raymond and King of Queens, the same stories are recycled between the two shows.
So I decided to look at my high school just as a comparison. So famous alumni from Northwood High School. Matt Drudge.
No, Matt Drudge went to Blair. He didn't go there.
Then you better go to the Wikipedia page and
because he went to Blair and he's from Tacoma Park. And I was like, wow, the only other conservative out of Tacoma Park. Robin Ficker went to Blair. He's also on that famous list too, by the way. Craig Rice is on that list, which I'm thinking, like, really?
It's interesting. I look at some of this. I'm like, I recognize the other name too, Annie Leibovitz, who's a famous photographer, just prize-winning photographer. But it's interesting to see that, even.
Why aren't you on that list, Don? You ran Accuracy in Media for years.
Yeah,
when it was great.
I think a lot of the famous alumni lists are politically correct.
Yes, they are.
That's part of the litmus test.
Yes. But yeah, it's funny how those things. We should have a conservative Wikipedia. Jeff's watching. So Jeff, please tell us: did Don Adams go to Einstein, or was it someone else, or was it Jerry Adams that went to Einstein? No, it wasn't Jerry Adams. Yeah. So we're coming up on final thoughts. I figured we could get I've got a fairly lengthy final thought. I've got a little message for the class of 2023. And they can go to the Montgomery County Roll Club page and read the whole thing. But anyways, final thoughts. Let's go. Jeff, why don't you go? Final thoughts.
So I don't know if this is a final thought or a random thought. So
either or
just
works.
Speaking about your pontificating, I'm just wondering if what size tombstone you're going to get with that epitaph. How many letters can you fit on that? Because I'm sure you're going to have like.
Actually, I'm going to go the cremation route.
Mm-hmm.
And we just put it.
I can imagine like this big tower above your grave, just like with just word upon word about advice to future generations and
Yes,
about Spiro Agnew,
absolutely.
mentor to him, and
I thought
Yeah.
they'd just ship your body to India and put it on a funeral pyre.
No, no, I'm not going to do that. That's too much. No, no. I was born here, I'll die here. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Beyond that, I've been like really busy just with taking care of family and stuff like that. And my
Yeah.
daughter's up from South Carolina this week, so I'm taking her back this
Yeah.
weekend, and
Hmm.
so I don't know. I'm just
We
things
appreciate
have
you
been busy,
extending
but
your. We appreciate you extending your stay and coming out and helping us out tomorrow night at the Red, White, and Blue dinner.
yeah, I think we can do that. So
And we'll
yeah,
make
that should be
sure
fun.
young Miss Thornton gets to meet Governor Noem.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
How old's your daughter? This one?
22.
She's a ball of energy. We were at NASA the other day. She loved it. Did you guys go to the Helios room, by the way?
No, we just went home after that.
Okay.
And we wanted
So,
to see the WoW room or whatever, but we'll do that some other time.
Yeah.
so somewhere in the next 5, 6 years, we can call you grandpa.
No, I don't. If anything, I think my younger daughter is probably more on that route. She's in college right now, and she's got her beau has been with her for several years now, so I think that's probably going to be likely her partner. So we'll see how that develops. But at this point, it
Our
looks like
friend John is going to be a grandpa.
oh
Dr.
wow,
John. Yeah. Or is he? No, he's no. Or is he already a grandpa? No.
I looked
No,
up.
but
I looked up Don Adams. By the way, he grew up in New York and dropped out of high school in New York.
mm.
okay. So he didn't. He has no ties to. Because people say he has some ties to the Einstein community, though.
Yeah.
Maybe he lived there for a while. I don't know. But any other thoughts, Jeff?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Don, final thoughts?
Yeah, a few things, I guess. Uh, so, I think the Fox News, ever since Tucker got fired, and they're battling out about whether cease and desist because Tucker's doing some, I guess, 10-minute shows on Twitter and whatnot. But after 120 months, MSNBC beat Fox in prime time in both parts of the ratings, which is total viewers as well as the advertiser supported portion, which is the 25 to 54 age group. So Fox is struggling mightily on trying to figure out what to do post Tucker. And I think
So
even
I missed that. Are they sending Tucker Carlson cease and desist letters?
yeah,
But
yeah,
they let him go, right? So
yeah, they fired him, but I mean, in order for him to collect, the rest of his contract, what he's owed, he's not supposed to be really doing anything else. He's basically sticking, his finger in their eyes and saying, "Oh, well, I'm going to do this Twitter show," and they're saying you can't do that either. So
the reason I was asking because if you're working for a job, there's usually a non-compete agreement where you can't work for a competitor. But if the job lets you go, those agreements
You know
are
what Tucker
terminated.
should do? He should go to various bars in DC and pontificate and talk. I bet he'd sell out the bars, And then what's Fox going to say? Well, you're not broadcast, and then let somebody there stream that live.
yeah,
So it's not him doing it.
Tucker doesn't need money, right? I mean that's
Yeah.
not an issue for him.
That's right. He's part of the Swanson family.
Right. He married into money, but he's made a ton of money, working for Fox. Twitter does give him free reign to say what he wants. It just won't draw much of an audience. It surely won't draw 3 million people a night to that. So, he's probably going to survive, do a little bit better than say how Bill O'Reilly after he got fired. I think Megyn Kelly has done pretty well since.
Isn't Bill O'Reilly on Newsmax?
Yeah, and I think he's got some other things he's doing too. He's got some podcast deal or whatever. But it sometimes time moves along, right? And sometimes the Bill O'Reilly days are gone. I don't think people really gravitate to Bill O'Reilly like they did when he was at Fox. So,
and can we remind everyone, Bill O'Reilly used to host Current Affairs. It's really hard to take anybody seriously who did shows about space aliens and Bigfoot, and then we're supposed to take him seriously about political stuff.
Yeah. So
it'd be like if George Norrie was like one of the Fox evening host people. Yeah, I think he talks a little too much about little green men from Mars. Too long, George. It's hard for me to watch you say stuff political with a straight face. But
Right. So a couple other things real quick. Southern Baptist Convention, they had their meeting, and they voted to disfellowship a couple of churches. One is Fern Creek, I think it was, or whatever, and the other one was Saddleback. Is that what it was called? The one that Rick Warren founded, and Warren had retired, but the people who replaced him, the wife of the guy who replaced him, is like the teaching pastor, and the other one has had a female pastor leading their congregation for a number of years.
Yeah, I think Saddleback was a pretty progressive branch.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, I was surprised actually to hear they had been affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention to begin with, but it looks like this is part of an ongoing purge with the Southern Baptist Convention to say, like, no female pastors, like this, and if you are, we're going to just knock you off. That won't stop, churches like that from forming their own alliance and doing their own thing.
they could join the Methodists. From what I understand, some of the Methodists let anything go. The Methodist Church.
I mean, I've heard a lot of complaints from people I know that were Methodists that didn't like the real liberal theology going on with Methodists, but a lot of them broke off. I mean, this is what's happened in a lot of these big religions, is that you kind of have the conservatives and the liberals, and the schism has gone far enough that some of them have said, forget it, I'm not supporting the national organization anymore, and we're going to go and do our own thing, even if it means a lack of funding nationally. We'll just do our best to raise our money locally or whatever. So it's this has been going on for a number of years, and I think the Southern Baptist Convention is just kind of accelerating that. I've known people who've been in Southern Baptist Convention hierarchy and stuff like that, and this is they want to be true to their conservative roots, and they don't want to be very progressive in this reign, and that's fine for them. That they can, it's their faith, their religion, and they can decide to interpret things the way they want to do it. And I guess to a certain extent, Rick Warren made a big plea for them not to do that, but I think their decision was that you don't fit within the rubric of what we want to do here. So go ahead and do whatever else you want to do. And I mean, how many religions are there out there anyway? I mean, there's such a wide range of things in there.
Yeah, I mean, just look under the Hindus. You probably have about at least 3-4 dozen sects under Hinduism. Frankly.
Yeah, and people, how many times have I seen pastors who get mad at somebody in leadership?
Remember,
they just go off and form their own church.
Yeah, remember Michael Graham? He's talking about how you get the First and Second Baptist churches in town. All the people that wanted the blue carpet went off and started their own church with blue carpet, and the red carpet people had the red one. And then when they decide that they get mad about drapes, they split off again. People that want drapes opposed to Venetian blinds, and that's how they all get divided and so on.
Yeah, I know our Koreans have done the same thing. I think I did. My experience of being married to Korean is just that she's had plenty of acquaintances and things like that where people get fed up with the leadership of their church, and then they go and split off and form their own church, and so it gets very confusing in terms of who's doing what, and how legitimate these guys are, because they just keep splitting off from each other over lots of really just petty issues. I think in the end, there's a lot of ego going on there in a lot of these things. I don't know. I want to mention just drive-throughs and artificial intelligence. I don't know if you've run into this. We have a Checkers that's been open for a couple of years here nearby, and I noticed, I don't know, several months ago when I went, that depending upon when you went, sometimes you were no longer getting the actual voice. You were getting an AI. You were getting a robotic type of voice there to handle the order and everything like this. But the reason I had put this down there was that the Wall Street Journal had done an article about how this is starting to become more ubiquitous in a lot of these things. And they did one on White Castle, I think in Indiana. And some people thought it was great, and other people just absolutely hated it, because a lot of times the AI just totally screwed up the order, or didn't.
So it's just like humans. So it's just like when you do drive-through orders at McDonald's.
Like a lot of things. I mean, this type of thing is what, it's taught certain things, right? They use experiences and things like that. But there's people who order fast food, somebody's always bound to throw a monkey wrench and ask for something special out of the ordinary.
Mhm.
And if you've got an artificial intelligence that's been trained on a certain set of characteristics, somebody says they want this, it's not in their database. It's like they don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of saying try to order McRibs at McDonald's, be like, we don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
Wait till whatever. AI will be like, what are you talking about?
It's like a Shamrock Shake. I could get a Shamrock.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Dwight orders Shamrock Shake in December.
By the way, has anybody tried the cookie dough McFlurry?
No, I didn't know that.
I saw that on Facebook. That's a new thing. It's a cookie dough McFlurry.
I did do the strawberry shortcake one though.
Jason Trott shared that with us.
Never know. Never know. And that's just to finally finish it off and let you go to this our president, just showing how with it he is. He was giving his gun control speech today, and at the end of the speech he says, "God save the Queen," and then he walked off. And then he So the news reports was like, even reporters are like, "What is he? What's going? They don't even know how to report that."
Well, it is Pride Month. Did he say Queen or Queens plural?
Oh, darn it! We didn't talk about. Oh, that was what a disaster that was.
I don't know. Maybe Queen's breaking up or something. It's been enough years.
Yeah.
Of Queens,
God save Queens, New York.
Yeah, the video is funny because it has him saying, like, at the end, "God save the Queen," and then he's kind of doing this thing like looking at somebody pointing, say, "So which way am I supposed to go to get off the stage?"
Well, he's also trying to build a railroad across the Pacific to the Indian Ocean.
I mean, he is our president, but I'm just like, oh, this is so embarrassing to watch this stuff.
And and just think, they remember all the stuff they used to say about Vice President Quayle. Boy, I'm glad he's watching this.
Quayle, people give Quayle a hard time. He's not a dumb guy. I mean,
no, he's not.
That's like saying George W. Bush did a lot of verbal quips and stuff. Just like you take anyone when they get flustered, of course it's going to sound awful. But Quayle was not a dumb guy, but he always is pinned as the one who's like the idiot. I don't know why.
It's
media.
Yeah, the media. Yeah, and Dan Quayle should have run for president in 2008. He could have beaten John McCain, and he probably could have beaten Barack Hussein Obama. And
we'll never know.
Yeah, I know. But his son Ben did make it to the United States Congress.
He did what, one term?
Yeah, one term. It's funny, he got sick of Washington after one term, didn't run for re-election.
I don't
I thought he
blame
didn't
him.
like this. Either that or he didn't like the snow and sleet of Washington, the cold. Because they moved to Arizona.
I've got to admit, just spending that 12 years or on the Central Committee is like, I'm like, why would you want to be a politician? Why would you want to actually deal with that on any level? It's just so horrible.
And you thought running AIM was a tough job.
Yeah, I mean, AIM doesn't even talk about the media anymore. They're just doing all their,
they're buying Nazi billboards.
They just do all their Project Veritas videos and they're rolling billboards on education. It's like, who are these guys?
I'll tell you, I'll be frank. I stopped giving money to AIM because of one, I question the leadership there. They need to go back to their roots, And like that, I said I needed to be frank.
Yeah, just send your excess money to Accuracy in Academia so we can stay afloat.
Okay, I could do that. And let's see. Any other thoughts, Don? But real quick, tipping. Have you guys noticed how they've gotten more and more aggressive with the tipping stuff? It's like
that's been a big story lately in the business world about people are really sick of the tipping because how you go because the pandemic exacerbated cashless payments, right? Credit card, debit card, not accept cash.
Yeah.
So now you've got the terminals there, whether or not they're Square terminals or from Toast or Clover or whatever. And now they've all put in the tipping prompts. There was a story in the journal the other day that even there are some places, where the clerks, they try to look away, when it's time for you to settle up on, like if you're just getting a cup of coffee or whatever, because they don't want to feel that they're guilting you into anything.
Yeah.
But people are really sick and tired. Virtually everywhere you go, there's a tipping prompt, and you're like,
I've heard
"Oh, I need to
Wegmans
tip for this."
and there's supermarket chains where you go to the register, you're checking out, they ask for a tip. And
I just went to a Japanese steakhouse, and it was just the three of us, and they automatically added an 18% tip, which I normally thought was like the larger parties, but it wasn't even a choice. It was just like it was already added. So, and then they asked for like an additional tip, like a place there. I was like, why would they do that? It's like they've already put an 18% tip, and then they're asking for like
that 18% thing used to be like on parties of 8 or more. That was kind of
exactly. Yeah,
that was fairly standard before, right? Yeah.
now,
you never know. I mean, plus now you get, for years we've been getting on other things, suggested tip amounts. They would throw that on
18, 20, 25.
Yeah, and they tended to do that on top of the tax,
Right.
not pre-sales tax or food tax. And it's like, why do I want to tip them on the tax too?
Yes.
Oh, this world is just, sometimes I'm always like, just shoot me.
It's a mad, mad, mad world. Great movie, by the way. Everybody should watch it. Have you guys seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's just what
It's
I mean.
mad
Get
world.
yourself.
No, that was the sequel.
It was. Oh, that's the sequel.
That's the sequel. No, seriously, they actually was the sequel. They had Mad World. They had Mad World, and they had another one after that. And Mr. Howell was in all three of them.
See, and the other part of the problem too, Dwight, is just that New York just passed a new law in New York City for the drivers who do the food delivery for like DoorDash, Uber Eats. The minimum wage for those drivers is $7.09 because they're supposed to get tips to make it to whatever the minimum wage currently is in New York, which may be $15 an hour, right? New York's new law is that the wage has now got to be, I think, $17.96 an hour, and then it's going to go to like $19.96 in a couple of years. It's like, what do you think is going to happen to the food delivery people? Those companies, where they were paying $7 an hour or thereabouts, a minimum of $7, and then they always had to cover whatever the minimum was if there weren't enough tips. That's always been the law. But now you got to pay them another up to $12 an hour more or something like that.
Part of the issue with DoorDash, because my girlfriend worked for DoorDash, is they basically only pay you from the actual when you pick up the food to delivering it. When you go back, that's like they call it deadheading. It's basically it's on your own time. Your time between orders, that's your time. You don't get paid for that.
Right, and that's what this is trying to solve, is that issue. But the thing is that I think part of it is that if you understood that that's the way that works, then you have a choice to either accept it or not accept that. I mean, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers kind of face that same problem, right? I mean, you can drive someone to a location, but what are the odds that you're going to find somebody at the other location? So you can, as you way back, there will be a lot of deadheading. So that's why I always question driving.
But this is kind of the issue, is that supposedly the difference between being a contractor and being an employee is with a contractor, you can take on multiple gigs and you're not restricted to one, but you can't really DoorDash and Uber Eat at the same time. You have to do one or the other. So it's like, I don't know. It's really a gray area. It's like, I understand why DoorDash doesn't want to pay for that process. But if you're on the clock, it's like if you're delivering for a company, if you're shipping like parts, from one warehouse to another warehouse, you get paid both directions, even though you're only shipping them really in one direction. Now, if you're doing an independent truck driver and you're doing your own kind of thing, I get that. That's why you deadhead back if you don't carry a load. But if you are working for Uber or for DoorDash, it's like, I understand don't get paid until you get to the first place, but once you start the clock, as far as I'm concerned, you're on the clock regardless of whether you're taking an order or not, because that's just like being a waitress. It's like sometimes you get a table, sometimes you don't, but you're still there. You're still available to work, even if you're not actively working. So for me,
Right.
the fact that
Yeah,
they're getting away with it with, go ahead.
right, because I think the federally tipped wage was like $2.35 an hour for restaurant workers, and the rest is to be made up via tips. But you're going to get paid the $2.35 an hour for your shift minimum. That was always there. And they've got to. And the restaurant always had to. The restaurant always had to make up the rest. If you had an hour and you didn't get any tips, or if your total wages for your shift were below the minimum wage, the restaurant was going to have to make you whole.
Absolutely.
I think that's those are things that need to be improved along the
But
way.
now you see with the wages going up, like in California and New York, the wait staff are making like decent money without the tips. You know.
Well, sometimes, it really depends on the location too, because, mad. So we're going back to the mad world. But yeah, so, and like, here's the thing too, is that, my girlfriend also did, she worked as a waitress as well. And sometimes you'd get people that, tip well. A lot of people tip average, but then you'll get, some parties that are just, they have an attitude and they just will not tip, and they'll just take all your time. And again,
They're called Europeans, Jeff. They're called
no,
Europeans.
there are, so put it this way, there are some ethnicities that are more prone to do that than others.
Yes,
but
I know.
without getting into that, the point is that, without getting into prejudices,
Guilty.
sometimes you just get, a bad table. And some places will have it where you have like a pool where, all the waitresses put the money in and they kind of share it equally,
Yeah.
because really you're doing your own. As long as you're doing a waitressing job, it's like, I can understand that. But then other places would be like, yeah, you just don't, if you don't get tipped, you don't get tipped. And then you got to get minimum wage. And sometimes this is luck of the draw, just like with DoorDash. Sometimes you get a delivery where they tip you and sometimes they don't. The problem is that it's so inconsistent that, to try to base your, not just salary, but,
Yeah.
if you want to, if you need a certain amount of money, like per day to survive, and you get all these bad runs where, DoorDash isn't really giving you good deliveries and the people aren't tipping you, you could spend more money on gas than you actually make.
Well, I tell you,
the
during
deliveries.
the pandemic, Bats was doing DoorDash, and he was saying he actually did pretty well. He used DoorDash to fund a new graphics card for his computer.
I'm saying sometimes you get, you get areas that are really
he was
good.
Part of the thing is he was in
Michigan, like the whole city of Pontiac, no one in Pontiac tips apparently, because every time she would deliver to Pontiac, anywhere in Pontiac, it'd be consistent. She would never get a tip in Pontiac. And sometimes she would do these like 10-mile deliveries where somebody wants like a burger, from a Burger King like 10 miles away. I'm like, there's a closer one, but for some reason they want that one. And so she goes like 10 miles to deliver it, gets like, $3 for the delivery and no tip. And it's like she spent more on gas than the actual delivery. And then she's got to deadhead back to her, her center, because Pontiac is really on the edge of the service area. So again, it's just, it's not like that happens all the time, but depending where you are, you can, if you get enough of those in a row, it's just like, not only is it discouraging, it also, ends up costing you money. And there's just really no built-in way for some of these companies to accommodate that. And DoorDash is not incentivized to make these changes because they're getting paid regardless of what the drivers do. And the drivers try to work the system, but again, it's just one of those things that you're always like fighting against, trying to figure out, how to maximize your profit. And if it was more even, as far as like, if DoorDash is paid a straight amount, regardless of, distance or anything else, and said, okay, here's a minimum payment, then they'd be more incentivized to make the drivers more efficient so that DoorDash maximizes their use of you. But right now, they don't care. You could have, 10 times the number of drivers than you have orders, and DoorDash doesn't care because they only pay you for the drive for the order. So you could have literally 10 times the number of drivers than you need, and only, some drivers will get paid, but DoorDash, like I said, in no way is suffering because of that. And that's what I'm saying, is I understand why there should be some incentive for the company to try to, do a baseline for the employees, regardless of whether they're being utilized or not. Because again, that incentivizes the company to use workers more efficiently, and let someone know, it's like, if you're going to join, then, it's really busy right now, or whatever. So again, there's all kinds of arguments. What I'm just saying is that right now it's very difficult to try to be consistent and figure out, is this really going to work out or not?
But Jeff, see this guy here, Caleb Hammer?
Yeah.
He tells people, don't use DoorDash. Don't be so damn lazy because it's overpriced, costs too much, and you shouldn't be. By the way, everybody should subscribe to Caleb Hammer's channel. He does financial audits on millennials. Really good. He's really funny. It's always, you can see the stress when he sees somebody like spending money on stupid things,
I've only
Like
DoorDash when I was in LA doing a engagement, and it would have cost more for me to take a Uber or Lyft to a restaurant, order the food, and then take the Lyft or Uber back.
no, but
It's
he's
actually
referring
cheaper
to
to do
people who,
DoorDash. But I'm saying
but see,
there are places for that. I'm
well,
not
it's
saying
like
like
if he would say, like, let's say if he would say that if you're, let's say you've got an income of say $90,000 and you're like $180,000 in debt. He would say, why are you doing spending money on that when you could be putting that money towards your debts and stuff like that. Really good guy. Everybody should watch him. He's hilariously funny. It's always fun to see him get frustrated with people. Like he throws his pencil down and so it's funny. Gotta watch the guy. He's funny. Uh, Real quick, my abbreviated final thoughts is a quick message to the class of 2023. Some of you guys are going to college. Some of you guys are joining the armed forces. Some of you guys are just going right into the workforce. Some of you guys are going to trade school. You know, give everything you do, whatever you do, whether you're in the workforce, military, college, trade school, give it 110%. And don't forget everything you were taught by your parents and church and what you learned in church and temple. Don't get caught up in this woke culture. At the end of the day, just ask yourself, is this right or is this wrong? And yeah, you won't go wrong if you listen to your conscience. And so good luck, class of 2023. We're moving on to moving on from high school to college or work or whatever. And all the best to you guys, class of 2023. And by the way, I heard pomp and circumstances is being canceled in some schools. They find that offensive. I don't know what's offensive about pomp and circumstances, but it is. Evidently, there is some school districts in California that banned that. So that's one of my final thoughts. My other final thoughts was on tipping, and we went through hours and hours on tipping. And the last final thought is I discovered a great new bagel place. It's called Grinders. It's in College Park, and these are like really good. They got really good bagels.
They have a pizza bagel.
No, they don't. They don't. And it's funny. We went there. There's one by where we were at the convention this past weekend, and Jason Trott and I were going to go there, and we were both disappointed they didn't have a pizza bagel. They used to do pizza bagels, but you know who did the best pizza bagels? Chesapeake Bagels.
Chesapeake Bagel
But,
Bakery.
yeah. But these bagels were better than Chesapeake Bagels, though. But that's my final thoughts. Go to Grinders. They're great. There's one in College Park right next to the Potomac Pizza and Lido's. So, anyways, we'll see everyone next week. Good night, everyone.